Good afternoon, good evening, even good morning to some of you. Welcome to our not Dinner with the Doctor, that's another program. Our Ask the Doctor program. We're pleased to present this the first time for 2023. Welcome to those who are in the sanctuary. Welcome to those who are online. We have received quite a number of questions, and so therefore we're looking forward to receiving the answers from our lifestyle doctor that some of you will know, Dr. Chidi Ngwaba. He will be answering your questions. If you want to send online, we've had quite a few that have come in advance, and those of you in the audience, if you'd like to write your questions down, you can also ask your questions. So I am going to begin with a word of prayer, and we are going to start our program. Gracious Father in heaven, we come before you today with thankful hearts. We thank you for this, your Sabbath day, and we thank you for these amazing bodies that you've given us. Father, this afternoon we want to think about some ways that we can better help our bodies to be in optimum condition. We ask that these questions that have been asked will be answered and people will be able to make a difference, a change in their lives that will impact their future. Thank you so much for the opportunity. In the precious name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Okay, Dr. Chidi, over to you.
Thank you very much. And again, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. I was beginning to think I had a bit of luck there. I thought it was dinner with the doctor. Anyway, never mind. I'm sure that will be back soon. I guess we should start off with our first question if we're ready. Are we ready?
Okay, first question. How effective are antidepressants, and what is the best way to come off the antidepressants?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think if I answer the second bit first, antidepressants are very difficult to come off of. I would say that of all the medications, you really have to be ultra careful when you're coming off them, because they can have catastrophic effects if you do it wrong. You need to do it with a doctor, and really the key to it is to come off very slowly. That's what every doctor should tell you. However, there's more to say. If you can introduce a few lifestyle changes, if you can, for example, increase the amount of exercise you're doing, reduce the amount of refined food and processed food, it actually does have an effect on your mental health. Do those sorts of things, it will help and ease the process, but you must do it incredibly slowly. Some of you may not be aware that one of the side effects for antidepressants is suicidal thoughts. Did you know that? Side effect for an antidepressant is suicidal thoughts. And you may have seen some high-profile people who have killed themselves because they were coming off their antidepressants. So you have to do it with a lot of care. How effective they are really depends on the individual. When I was at medical school, we were taught that the reason why we give people antidepressant drugs is because there's a chemical imbalance in the brain which causes depression. I'll just say, you can even Google that anywhere. That theory has been debunked. So the different types of antidepressants can behave differently on different people. Some of them don't work very well at all. Some may have a marginal effect. Very good.
Okay, next question. What can I do to reduce eye pressure? I have no other lifestyle diseases or injury to the eye.
So eye pressure. This is very important. The term for it is glaucoma, pressure in the eyes building up. That can be really devastating. You can lose your eyesight because of it. Well, what causes it, first of all? One of the key factors for glaucoma, build-up of eye pressure, is diabetes. Almost 50% of people who have diabetes increase the pressure of their eyes. if the pressure does increase, it will squeeze the optic nerve. And if the optic nerve is squeezed, you actually lose your eyesight quite quickly. So, what can you do about it? There was a study, and some of you may understand this study, because it was a study using callaloo. Anybody heard of that? Mm-hmm. Some people have heard of it, okay. Yeah. So callaloo they used. Loads of callaloo in the diet reduced the pressure in the eye. What we now know is anything that is good for blood pressure naturally, so greens and all those sorts of things, reduces the pressure in the eye. So, and in fact, I would say even some of the more complicated eye problems, like there's macular degeneration, these are causes of blindness, all respond to increasing amounts of greens in your diet. Fabulous.
Okay. Next question. Can neuropathy be reversed?
Neuropathy. Well, neuropathy, let's say what it is first. It's where your nerves are kind of starting to die away, especially in the distal parts of your body, in your fingertips and in your toes, where your nerves, rather than just having that normal feeling, they can start to have pins and needles, burning sensation, pain sometimes. Can that be reversed? The short answer is yes, because when those symptoms are coming, it just means that the blood supply to those nerves is not as good as it should be. What causes it? Diabetes, again, is one of the big problems. Vascular disease is another problem. So if you get rid of the diabetes or get rid of the vascular problems with a healthy lifestyle plan, it's not quick. I mean, it will take you a good few months, 3 to 6 months, but that neuropathy will start to go away.
Okay. Can walking help with depression and anxiety?
Yeah, so depression and anxiety, these are emotional conditions. However, we as human beings, we're made up of emotions, the physical and the spiritual. And when you think about stress, anxiety, depression, yes, what we do, our brains release these increased chemicals like cortisol, that's a stress hormone. How do you get rid of that? Well, the cortisol is designed for us to be active. So the more active you are, if you're walking every day, and I always recommend a good hour of walking every single day, it will use up a lot of that stress hormone that is keeping you in that state of anxiety and depression. The other thing is, as you're walking, you find that your mind starts to clear. If you put somebody on a program of walking, even though they have problems, the problems don't go away, but they find out that it is easier to deal with the problems if you're constantly having exercise every single day, like walking. If you don't like walking, but most people do, if you don't like walking, find a gentle activity that you enjoy doing. Okay.
Okay, next question. This is quite a lengthy one. After looking after myself quite well for many years, I got to a certain age and weight crept up on me in a way it never had before. Something seems to have changed and it's hard to lose. I see programs and products for weight loss for the over 40s that seem to validate that there is a problem for some of us. So, the question, what would you recommend?
Well, that's a good question. I think a common question. People they say it to me all the time. Look, I'm still eating the same as I used to eat, but 20 years later I've put on so much weight, what's the problem? You may hear some doctors say, well, your metabolism changes when you get older. That would be a good excuse if it were true. But it's not true. It's not true. I mean, what is your metabolism anyway? Metabolism is just chemical reactions happening in your body. They don't change speed or pace when you get older. What does happen is that we get less active. When we were young, I say we, when we were young, you may not realize it, but we did a lot more walking about, a lot more activity. I remember in my 20s, I'd be walking everywhere. Then I got my driving license, that was it. go to the end of the road to the shop, oh, get in the car to do it. It takes you longer to get into the car, start the car and get there. But we just do it by habit now. What we should be doing is introducing more movement into our lifestyle. So I'm sure you've heard, get off the bus earlier when you go into work, get up earlier, go for that walk. All of those things, when they just become habit, in the same way that you turn around and you find that, oh, I'm a little bit overweight after 20 years, if you just do these things by habit, you'll turn around and say, I've lost all of that weight, I don't know how. It's all about just movement and mindset.
Okay, next question. I was told I had acid reflux some years ago, but didn't want to go on acid blocking medication. As I understand, we need stomach acid to function well for our immune systems, etc. Question, is there something else that I can do?
Yes, that acid in the stomach. That acid is so powerful. If you get a teaspoon of it, just go into your stomach, get a teaspoon of it, put it on this bench, it would actually burn through the bench. It is that powerful. And you might say, well, how come it doesn't burn through me? Well, we've got all of these mucous membranes that prevents it from happening. It's a wonderful thing. But as the question says, it's important in order, yes, to digest the food and also to kill off a lot of the bacteria. By the way, vultures have some of the most acidic stomachs on the planet. It is almost impossible for these things, vultures, to get sick from food. Their acid is so strong. But our acid is mildly strong and it gets rid of a lot of that bacteria. But why do we produce so much acid? One of the biggest reasons is stress. The more stressed we are, the more acid we produce. Some of the other things are the diets that we have. If you have lots of sugar in your diet, if you have alcohol, if you smoke, if you're stressed, alcoholic, and a chain smoker, and you have lots of sugar in your diet, you're in bad trouble. But if you can reduce those things and eliminate the poisons, you can be free of acid. It takes, once you make the lifestyle change, it takes you about 2 or 3 months, and then you find that the level of acid goes down. Now, here's the problem. If you are given acid tablets to deal with your acid, omeprazole, things like that, how do they work? They work by turning off the pumps that make the acid in your stomach. They block those pumps. Now, our body is so finely tuned. When you block those pumps, your body says, oh, but I need more pumps, so it generates more pumps. So then you find that this anti-acid tablet is not having any effect. And if you then try to come off of the drug, you've got twice the number of pumps there. So you find it's very difficult to come off them because you have this really bad acid attack. Again, a bit like the antidepressants, if you want to come off them, you have to come off them very, very slowly. Allow your body to adapt.
Is it true that the hours of sleep before midnight are more valuable? How much sleep do we need each night? And please explain serotonin and melatonin in relation to sleep.
I mean, what is this, a survivor from medical school? What's all that about? Anyway, the first part, is it true that the hours before midnight are more effective? Well, yes, and if you think about it, it must be the case. If you're going to sleep after midnight, first of all, you're going to have a shorter amount of sleep. And if you're going to bed before midnight, and we always like a good 2 hours before midnight makes a big difference. That means you have got yourself ready, you're in bed, your day is ended by about 9 o'clock, you're in bed by 10 o'clock. That is kind of like the sweet spot for rest. The second part was about serotonin and...
Melatonin.
Yeah, serotonin. Okay, let's talk about... So serotonin kind of is linked to the first question about depression. This was this psychiatric theory of depression. Serotonin levels go down in the brain, that must cause depression. That's not actually true. But serotonin is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It is made from amino acids, one amino acid called tryptophan. Tryptophan, by the way, is highly present in bananas. Serotonin and dopamine come from tryptophan, and they make us feel better and more at ease. And you can tell that because all the monkeys you ever see, none of them are stressed and none of them are depressed because they're eating their bananas. Fantastic. Melatonin, that's just released on a cyclical basis from the brain, and it does help with sleep. And many people think that if you get jet lag, it's your melatonin levels that are the ones disrupted. It takes a while for them to calm down before you can get back into your sleep pattern. There you go. Professor, whoever that was.
Okay, next question. What are the best ways to get iron into the body, and what foods are best?
Okay. So there are lots of foods that have lots of iron in them. Beans and greens. I mean, beans and greens, I would say, are the best ways to get iron in. But you must remember, and this is why a plant-based diet is so good. For example, if you take an iron tablet, which many doctors will give you, an iron tablet, they may say to you, well, when you take the iron tablet, take it with some orange juice. They say that because they want you to oxidize the iron from the +2 to the +3. That's when it's active. But iron tablets are not usually essential. We have enough of it in the beans and greens. And if you have a plant-based diet, you've got lots of natural vitamin C there as well. But let me just take that a little bit further, because most people who are suffering from low iron are women. And I must say, in our population, it's mainly women of colour who have this low iron, or this pernicious anemia. It's important for me to get to the root cause. I don't think there's any point just going to your doctor, oh doctor, I've got low iron, here's some iron for you. Well, why do I have low iron? That's what we should try and find out. The majority, and I mean this, the majority, without doing a diagnosis of every woman in the country, the majority are having an autoimmune response to the production of red blood cells, meaning that your own antibodies are attacking some point along the pathway of the synthesis of your red blood cells. How do you stop that? You stop that by doing all the things that will prevent your antibodies doing it. Lots of vitamin D, dealing with your stress, avoiding things that trigger that part of the immune system, milk proteins, wheat proteins. Then you will find that your iron levels will gradually start to tick up again. That's a way to cure it rather than treat it. There you go.
Okay. How important is forgiveness for health? What if you still live with the trauma from what someone has done to you? Can unforgiveness cause illness?
Very good question. Very good. Very close to my heart, this one. The answer is forgiveness. I mean, I'm going to say, because I would find it very difficult. I'm talking about chronic diseases now. It would be difficult to find a chronic disease that is not impacted by forgiveness. I can say without fear of contradiction, stress is at the heart of many diseases, right? Well, how do we release stress from the system? One way is forgiveness. And by forgiveness, I mean even forgiving ourselves. Many of us are carrying around a lot of these burdens that we cannot let go just from on our own back. Learning to forgive, even thinking about it, this is what the evidence shows. Thinking about forgiving somebody, your stress levels start to come down. You haven't yet forgiven them, but your stress levels will start to come down. We know that your blood pressure starts to come down even when you're contemplating forgiving somebody. When you actually get to the place of forgiveness, and you know it's not an instant thing, sometimes it can take a while, but when you get to that place, when you no longer hold that bitterness towards somebody else or yourself, all the studies will tell you that your blood pressure, your heart disease profile, your cancer profile all goes down. Because once you're harboring unforgiveness, your stress levels remain high. You can be functioning high, you can look calm as a cucumber, but that stress is still building up. You may not even feel the stress within you, but because you still haven't forgiven that individual, your body will still keep generating it. We have this term, we call it the body keeps the score. You may have forgotten the issue, but but you haven't dealt with it. You've forgotten it, but you haven't dealt with it. Your body is still keeping the score and pumping out all sorts of toxins. So forgiveness is an absolute key. Was the second part, what was the second part of it? Oh, you have to go back. I think it was how do you get to the place of forgiveness or something?
I can't
No? Okay. Well, I'll tell you anyway.
Sorry, it was, can unforgiveness cause illness?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I did that. Okay, thank you. Good. Next one.
What is leaky gut, and how can this be repaired naturally?
I mean, who's asking these questions? I mean, are all these doctors out there? I think they're just people there trying to test me. They're not really sick people. Okay, leaky gut is a real thing. I would say, if you go to most doctors, they'll probably tell you, we don't believe that. What is leaky gut? So all the 23 feet of your gut, right from top to bottom, you've got 23 feet, approximately, of gut. The inner lining it's almost like a single cell layer. And it's so thin because it can absorb the things that you want and it can keep out the things you don't need. Brilliant. I mean, your gut is absolutely brilliant. But sometimes those gaps between the cells open up, which means bigger proteins can get through. That's what we call a leaky gut. Now, why do these gaps open up? Anytime you're stressed, when you feel stressed and you feel it in your stomach, butterflies or whatever, if I said, come up and finish this talk for me, you'd just feel it. You'd feel it in your stomach. No, you wouldn't? Well, do you want to come up and do the talk then? I mean, I'm joking, all right. I'm just seeing if people are awake, I mean, it's hot. It's hot, right? So this happens because of stress. It can happen because of drugs. It can happen because of trauma. Nonetheless, these big proteins that are supposed to have been digested, they get through before they're digested. Now, if they do get through, your body will identify them as foreign because they're not supposed to be that big. And when it identifies them as foreign, it starts to attack the proteins. This is the genesis of an autoimmune attack. You raise antibodies to these proteins, and then those antibodies go around your body looking for other areas that look like the protein they've destroyed, and it could be in your joints causing arthritis, it could be in your throat causing thyroid. That's the origin of it.
Okay, next question. Does attitude really affect the immune system?
What would you say, audience? Yes, attitude does. In fact, 2009, a professor by the name of Elizabeth Blackburn got the Nobel Prize for discovering this fact. She got a load of young women, actually, who had multiple problems, multiple stresses in their lives, got groups of them, took their blood, looked at their DNA, and realized that they had these little things in their DNA called telomeres. And the women who were overwhelmed with their troubles, they had very short telomeres in their DNA. The women who had the same number of troubles but were not overwhelmed by them, they had longer telomeres. And they realized that the people who had the longer telomeres lived longer for various reasons. It could be heart disease, cancer, whatever. And the ones who had short didn't live so long. But the interesting thing that was noted is if they were able to get help to change their attitude towards their problem, the telomeres got longer and they lived longer. So it's not the problem, it's not the stress that we find ourselves in, it's actually our attitude towards the stress. That's the thing that determines how well we live. Not just how long we live, but how well we live. Very good.
Okay. I have been told I am dehydrated. I do try to drink water, but I am often out and always need the bathroom when I drink too much. Is there a remedy?
Is there a
remedy?
Drink more water. Next question. That's it. That's it. It's just, I mean, you're dehydrated because you don't drink enough. No, I mean, I've got this in front of me. This is my 3rd bottle of water today. Yes, it does mean you go to the bathroom a bit more frequently, absolutely. But I can guarantee better to do that than to dry out and cause yourself all sorts of problems down the line. Being dehydrated over many years causes significant problems with your kidneys, with your blood pressure, all sorts of things. Doesn't matter, no excuse, drink more water.
Do diabetics need to avoid salt?
I think everybody really needs to avoid salt. I know salt is useful to the body, but in this society, very rarely will there be anybody who doesn't have a lot of salt in their system. I mean, the NHS, I think if you look on the website, the NHS will probably say, oh, you need about somewhere between 4 and 6 grams of salt every day. That's way too high. Way too high. You really don't need more than 1 gram. I would say probably half a gram of salt every day. So most of us have way too much salt. But it doesn't particularly affect a diabetic any worse than anybody else. So what salt really does, wherever salt goes, water follows, right? You remember that from school? Osmosis, remember that term? Distant osmosis. Wherever there's lots of salt, water follows, and that's just how it is in our body. So if you have lots of salt in your system, you retain lots of water, and think about it, you're a closed system of arteries. So if you've got lots of water in there, the arteries will be under a lot of pressure, your blood pressure goes up. This is the reason why black people in the West have higher blood pressures than the average Caucasian, not because of slavery, not because of the Windrush, but because we're designed to retain more salt, because we come from hot countries. If we didn't retain more salt, we'd all dry out. So because we retain more salt, we come to a country which has lots of salt in the diet, we suffer more with high blood pressure.
Okay, next question. Does attitude really affect the immune system?
Is that the same person? Was that the twin of the person who gave it before?
Okay, next question. How much protein do I need in my diet, and can you get it from a plant-based diet?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, you might hear this all the time. You need 70 kilograms per whatever. This is how much protein you need. Protein seems to be the flavor of the month these days. Everybody needs a high-protein diet. For many reasons, that is wrong. Let me ask you, do you know where they came across the recommended daily amount of protein for our diet? Do you know how they discovered that? What's that? I mean, you're nearly right there. What they did, there was a government scientist who was asked to look at the nutrition of Great Britain. And what did he do? He went out, he was walking, and he saw some workmen working on the road. He said, well, what are you guys eating? And they showed him. He looked at it, went back to his lab, tried to measure how much protein was there. He said, yeah, that seems about right. That became the recommended daily allowance. You think I'm joking? Look it up. You know, sometimes, you know, we hear this in the media all the time. Trust the scientists. Trust the science. You need to look at how these scientists got their information. You cannot blindly trust the science. You said, can you get enough protein on a plant-based diet? Think about the gorilla. Think about the gorilla, just for a second. I don't know, has anybody seen a real gorilla in real life? Not in the zoo. They're the smaller ones. They're the smaller ones. You realize that? They're the smaller ones in the zoo. You see the real, go to Rwanda and see the real big, you know, silverback gorillas. I mean, they're massive. You know, the strongest guy on the planet can bench press something like, I don't know, 400 kilograms. 400 kilograms. They estimate that a fully grown silverback gorilla can bench press somewhere near to 3 tons. You know, they're that strong. If one gorilla was let loose here and he was going crazy, all of us together wouldn't be able to subdue that gorilla. They're that strong. And now you look at their diet, Their genetic material is about 99% the same as ours. If you look at their diet, it's all plant-based, right? It's all plant-based. They do quite well. And it's very interesting. We get more than enough protein from plants. I was looking at sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have loads of protein. But just because it doesn't look like a slab of meat, we think, oh, hasn't got enough. It's got the right amount, in the right concentration, in the right way for our bodies to absorb it. Interestingly, about a month ago, because I'm talking about doctors and science again, about a month ago, I was having a debate in Sheffield with some eminent doctors who believe that all you need to eat is meat. I mean, all you need to eat is meat. They don't eat hardly anything else. Their proposal was you do not need any plants in your diet. They all just ate meat. So you can't trust all of the doctors, you know. You can't. And I looked at their website and they said, oh, when you go on our diet, you might be a little bit constipated, so blah, blah. I mean, it's telling you it's no good. If your diet's causing constipation, it's causing other things too. So yes, we have more than enough protein in a healthy plant-based diet. Just to round that off, you know, there are some fantastic athletes who are just plant-based. Novak Djokovic, you've heard of him? Mm-hmm. Remember a guy called Carl Lewis? Yeah, all these people who were vegans, I mean, some of the best athletes on the planet. I've even seen some of these NFL football players who say, look, you know what, when I changed my diet to a plant-based, I got faster and stronger and quicker. I guess quicker and faster are the same thing. I'm just testing you. All right, good, thank you.
Next question. Are keto diets good for you?
Okay, so that's just what I was talking about. These doctors who believe the keto diet, that's the heavily meat diets, are they good for you? Let me tell you something, because if you look into it, the keto diet, you will see that many people have gotten rid of certain problems. They've lost weight, they've gotten rid of certain diseases by going on a keto diet. The thing that they do, and the thing that I agree with them, is they eliminate all the processed food. So they don't eat sausages and bacon and stuff. They will eat whatever their meat is, but proper servings of it. That alone can help your body start to recover, but it will not make your body totally healthy. When I'm talking about health, I don't think you can have a healthy program if it makes you healthy in one area and unhealthy in the other area. So if you're helping somebody to reverse diabetes and it causes them to have high blood pressure, it's not a good diet, right? So the keto diet can be specific for one thing, but it will cause another problem.
Okay. How easy is it to have your vitamin D tested?
Oh, it's very, very easy. You can just do a blood test. If you're asking, will your doctor do it for you, that might be a bit more of a challenge. You have to push it for a bit, but I think more doctors are aware of the low amounts of vitamin D in our society. If you're a person in this country, actually black or white, and you're not taking a vitamin D supplement in Great Britain, you are almost certainly low in vitamin D. You do need a supplement. If you ask me how much, I say you shouldn't be taking anything less than 5,000 units per day. I recommend around 10,000 units per day. If you go to your doctors, they may give you 1,000. That's nowhere near enough. You need 5,000 to 10,000.
Okay. What if a child has low iron? What do you suggest?
Well, a bit like what I was talking about before. Let's get to the root cause of the low iron. Certainly try them with lots of beans and greens. Make sure they have enough vitamin C. And then think about, well, could it be something triggering the autoimmune system? So removing things like milk, removing things like wheat protein, that would be useful too.
Okay. Is there a significant link between the gut and the brain?
Yes, there is a big link between the gut and the brain. The gut is called the second brain because it has the second highest number of nerves. And you know that because, as I said, if I get you to come and do this talk, you get that butterfly effect in your tummy. And that's because your brain is inextricably linked to your gut. And the more stressed you are, it's very interesting, even the more stressed you are will affect your appetite and what you put in your gut. Every time we're stressed, we always choose the wrong things. You know that, right? If you're stressed, you say the wrong things, you drive in the wrong way, and you eat the wrong things. So, yeah, they're inextricably linked. So the best thing to do, though, is to listen to your brain over your gut. That's what I would say. Very good.
What causes insomnia and how can it be treated naturally?
So insomnia, where we're not sleeping properly. So this is the first thing I say about insomnia. Nobody dies from insomnia. Nobody dies from insomnia. What people really suffer from is the worry about insomnia. And these are the facts. So if somebody has insomnia, it's usually due to some kind of stress. You can't go to sleep because your mind is going over things. Even if it's not conscious, it will be subconscious. So the best thing to do is to figure out, well, what is it that's causing me this level of stress? How do I deal with it? Can I get to the root of it, talk about it? Sometimes it can be just the activity. Am I getting myself exhausted? And some people may say, well, but I'm at work all day, I'm actually quite tired. But your body has adjusted to that level of work. So you might have to just go a little bit extra, do another half an hour at the end of the day, walking or something, just to get you to a place where you can be asleep. But here's a tip for people who have insomnia. In the first week or so, if you find that you can't go to sleep, don't try to go to sleep. Get up, do something. Do some work that you were doing during the day, read something, but just treat it as, okay, it's like being up in the afternoon. Eventually your body will adjust. Through the week, eventually your body will say, okay, I'm a bit tired of this now, and you will want to go to sleep. But the three things are, get to the root of any stress issue, make sure you're being active, and don't worry about insomnia. Don't worry about it.
Okay, next question. Is amitriptyline a safe sleep aid?
So amitriptyline is a type of antidepressant. Okay, it's an antidepressant drug, and it has a long list of side effects. Amitriptyline is used as a sleep aid. It's used as an antidepressant. It's used for people who have this painful jaw, trigeminal neuralgia. So I would take that with caution because the list of side effects is as long as your arm. And because you're saying it as a sleep aid, if we do the things that I was just saying, that's much more effective and has far fewer side effects. In fact, there are no negative side effects at all by what I said.
You spoke earlier about the cause of leaky gut.
Yes.
But how do you treat it? Can it actually be repaired?
Yes, okay, good. Yes, it can. So, first of all, for most people, the leaky gut is temporary and it just goes back on its own. But for example, let's say you're stressed every single day or something's stressing you out every single day, well then it's always going to be leaky. Again, you're going to need to get to the root cause of that stress. But what other physical things can you do to calm that gut down? You will know that if somebody has an upset tummy, what would you give somebody for an upset tummy? What sort of drink would you give them? Mint. Yes, mint is a very good one. Mint calms down the gut. Lavender, all of those things. Chamomile, they calm down the gut and stop it from being so excitable, and that brings the cells back together again. And then just avoiding inflammatory foods. So sugar, any kind of refined sugar, will make your gut blow up again. So try and avoid that.
Okay, next question.
Do I have to talk about tea and coffee and alcohol? Well, you never know. There could be anybody. Avoid tea, coffee and alcohol. Avoid tea, coffee, and alcohol.
Can cognitive decline be reversed? If not, what is the best way to deal with memory loss?
Yes, so cognitive decline, let's go for the big one, dementia. I think that's what most people worry about. When I was at medical school, I think most people worried about cancer. These days, it is dementia, losing your memory, losing your personality. How do we get rid, or can it be reversed? The good news is that dementia is a lifestyle disease. It's not a random disease. People think, oh, am I going to get it? It's not random, it's lifestyle. We already know the biggest trigger factors for dementia: high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and the big one, 40%, is stress. If you have extended periods of stress, especially in your middle to later life, it's a big indication for dementia. It doesn't mean you're all going to get, just because you've had stress doesn't mean you're going to get dementia, but there's a significant proportion of people that will. So the good news is it's lifestyle related. There were some studies done just back maybe 10 years ago that showed by eating a diet high in antioxidants can reverse up to 90% of the symptoms if it's detected early. Up to 90% of the symptoms. Now you may say, well, how can that be? Because this is all about your nerves, and I didn't think you could repair nerves. It is about nerves, but in the early stages, the nerves are just being inflamed because they've been assaulted so much, they're now inflamed. If you can get rid of that inflammation with an antioxidation diet or antioxidant diet, 90% of the symptoms can go away. So that would be good. And then obviously, we've said what some of the causes are. So if you can reverse some of the causes, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the obesity, that comes from a healthy plant-based diet. Yeah, absolutely, you can reverse it totally. Okay. And prevent it.
What causes trigger finger?
Alcohol. Who asked the question? I'm joking. No, that's one of the causes. Yeah, that's one of the causes. So trigger finger, and trigger finger is just where one of the muscles and tendons gets kind of caught. One of the causes is alcoholism, absolutely, but rheumatoid arthritis can cause it. So, and the other inflammatory diseases can cause it. So what you need to do is try to get rid of all the inflammation in your body. And the things that cause inflammation are sugar, toxins, and stress. Those are the things you need to get rid of. And try that, give that the maximum possible push. Things like turmeric are very useful because it will get rid of a lot of the inflammation around the joints. I would give that a maximum push before, sometimes regrettably, you have to have a little bit of an operation. Okay?
What is a high antioxidated diet?
Yes. A high antioxidant diet is a diet with lots of antioxidants. Come on. Okay, I'll give you an example. Yeah. All right. So, for example, if you have a diet, like these guys, these doctors that were debating me, I'm getting the evil eye. These doctors that were debating me, if you're having lots of meat in your diet, how much antioxidants are in meat? Nothing. There's no antioxidants in meat. You can't find it. So every single plant, so you know the colors of the plants that we eat? The actual property of the color tells you its antioxidant ability. Because, I'm taking you right back to maybe O-level physics now. The reason why you have colors in things is because of the way the electrons vibrate. And it's those electrons that are doing the oxidation. So those colors tell you just how full the food is of antioxidants. So plants, vegetables, fruits, and then spices like turmeric and things like that, they are fantastically powerful antioxidants. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes?
Yes, some people, as they get older, they tend to gain weight, whilst others tend to lose weight.
Yes.
What is the reason for that?
Yes, because some people have a healthy diet through their life and some people don't. Because this comes back, somewhere in the beginning we were talking about something like this. Some people believe that as I get older, my metabolism changes. That's not true. Metabolism never changes. And if you go to certain parts of the world, you'll find where the elderly, they don't gain weight at all. But it's about our lifestyle. In this part of the world, as we get older, we're encouraged just to not move, you know? We're encouraged to sit down at home, watch EastEnders. I mean, when the program's about to finish, they say, don't go anywhere. You see that, right? Even actually, whilst the television program's on, there'll be an advert for the next program to make sure that you don't move. We drive everywhere. We have churches where we sit down all day. I mean, maybe we should get rid of the chairs in our churches and have a standing church. Would be a pioneering. How about that? Should we put that to the church board? No, it'll be voted down. Never mind. But we just don't move as much, okay? And the thing is, we move less, but we eat just about the same, sometimes a little bit more. And that's the reason.
Okay. What can help someone with restless leg syndrome? This is affecting sleep.
Restless leg syndrome, you know, some people don't even believe that's true, but I think often it can be a side effect of medication. It's a side effect of medication. It gets your muscles to spasm when you, not just spasm, but actually be quite painful during the night, so you can't sleep. So one thing is to look at the medication you're on and try to get yourself off the medication, with help, obviously, and make sure that you are hydrating properly, because even the amount of water in your muscles and your nerves will affect the amount of movement it generates during the night.
Okay, next question. Is there any diet you can recommend for autism?
For autism?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can confidently tell you, and I mean just about for any problem on the planet, if you have a healthy plant-based diet, it will make whatever the problem is easier. It may not cure it, it won't cure autism, but it will make the problem easier. But sometimes the difficulty is with a person who's autistic, will they tolerate the certain foods you're trying to give them? That's the difficulty. And for me, I always say, well, whatever they like to eat, then you have to have innovative ways of incorporating food into it. So most people, but not all, because I've seen certain people with autism won't go near a smoothie, for example, but those that enjoy smoothies, you can put everything into the smoothie or the soup, and those things will really help, because what it also does, it makes sure that the nerves are not firing too frequently with autism. I mean, autism is a big subject in itself. We could have a big discussion about that, actually.
Okay. Recurrent ganglion cyst. Is there a way to stop them recurring? Ganglion
cyst, we all know what they are, do we know what they are? So sometimes in your wrist you can get these little bulges that come out. They're just, little cysts that come out in between the joints. Not much you can do about them. They're benign, they don't do anything. I used to get them reasonably frequently and I'd just bite on them and they'd go away. That's my medical intervention for you. There you go. But they don't do anything, so they're fine. But sometimes when they get very big, you might have to have them taken out. But they're very benign.
Okay. What is the solution to swollen ankles, especially during the summer or very hot weather?
Okay, swollen ankles. If it's on both feet or both ankles, that's actually better because it just tells you that it's a heart condition, it's a heart problem. You're not getting the fluid back to the heart quick enough. Why is that? It could be because you have high blood pressure, which is pushing the fluid back. It's usually high blood pressure. So it's an early sign of heart failure. What can you do about it? Lower your blood pressure. If you lower your blood pressure, the heart has to work less vigorously, and over a good year, you'll find that the heart failure goes away. Another thing to make sure, this is incorporated with lowering your blood pressure, is making sure you're active and getting those leg muscles active so that they're actually helping to pump that fluid back to the heart.
Okay. What causes heat rash, stroke intolerance, and how to prevent it, other than obviously staying out of the sun?
No, I won't do the usual joke. What causes heat rash? Heat. I won't say that. I won't say that. I mean, I've done that joke to death this evening. But when you get any kind of rash, by the way, that's kind of unusual, it's always important to look at, okay, what's underneath it? A bit like asthma and eczema and things like that. So your body can be responding to something. So you may have a sensitivity, for example, to cotton, and you might get a rash if you touch cotton. But it's not the cotton that's the problem. There's an underlying raising of your immune system for a reason. This is not autoimmune. This is almost like an allergy. So it's very important to think about what's triggering this allergy. The big ones are usually milk or wheat proteins. And if you eliminate those proteins from your diet, you tend to find that those things go away. If you add to it things that can help, anti-inflammatory and antioxidants, that will also help too. But there's usually a root cause to it, that your immune system is set at a higher level than most people, just like in hay fever and asthma and stuff like that.
Okay. High pylori.
Sorry?
High pylori? H. pylori?
Oh, right, yes. Yes.
H. pylori that worsens with antibiotics. Is there a natural treatment to get rid of it?
Okay, so H. pylori is a bug that exists in pretty much all of our stomachs. So I talked about this acid that's in our stomach, very powerful acid. But there is a bug called H. pylori that can exist there naturally. Now, for some of us, it gets a bit out of control and causes, acidity in our stomachs. And as the questioner said, it is usually treated with antibiotics. But yes, there are other ways you can go. Before you go to antibiotics, things like garlic, black seed, those things make the environment in your stomach intolerable for H. pylori, garlic in particular. You know, garlic is a fantastic agent for getting rid of bugs in our whole system. I mean, I probably shouldn't tell you this, because you'll probably avoid me, but I probably eat a good old bulb of garlic every day. Maybe you already know that anyway. I don't know. But yes, I get through a good bulb of garlic most days. I still managed to get a sore throat the other day, though, but anyway, never mind. Doesn't work all the time. Okay, but garlic, black seed, anything else that helps? No, those two are very good to start with. Who's next? Yes.
If one has both parents who have high blood pressure, does it mean that it's in the genes and it is inevitable that their offspring will have? Just a comfort. It says heredity loads the bullet and lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Okay, so you asked me a question, then you answered it. You're just showing off, is that it? Okay, that's fine. But yeah, look, you hear this all the time. My dad had, in fact, I probably told you this story, but it's quite a funny one. When I was working out in Kent, I was doing A&E, and there was a guy who had a heart attack that night, and he survived. Actually, it's quite rare that people survive heart attacks. So he survived, and I saw him in the morning, and he had a packet of cigarettes by his bed. And I said, "Oh, you're keeping those cigarettes just as a memento for your previous life?" He said, "No, I'm going out for a fag later." I said, "But you just had a heart attack. You've just survived a heart attack. And don't you think you should change your lifestyle?" He said, "No, doctor, I had a heart attack because my dad had a heart attack and his dad had a heart attack." So it's always good to to try to blame the parents. And as I always say, if the Garden of Eden has taught us one thing, we shouldn't blame each other. God blamed Adam, Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent, and of course the serpent didn't have a leg to stand on. Hey, some people are still awake, thank the Lord, thank the Lord. I'm going to have to assume that the people listening from afar have a better sense of humour. Anyway, that's it. But what my point is that, no, even if your doctor tells you, oh, it's just in your family, it's genetic, it ain't true, because you can ask them one simple question. Well, where is the gene for high blood pressure? It doesn't exist. Nobody's found it. Where's the gene for diabetes? Nobody's ever found it. It is lifestyle. What you've inherited is the taste for the food and all the other things in the lifestyle of your family. So it's not inevitable. Great.
Okay, this question is in relation to having a plant-based diet.
Okay.
You refer a lot to having a plant-based diet. Question, what is it? Many of the plant-based products on the market are processed and salt content is high.
Okay. Yeah, I do recommend totally plant-based diet. It is the healthiest diet. There is no diet that comes close to a plant-based diet. It's what we were designed for. Yes, there are processed plant-based materials in the shops, but that's not the only thing. I mean, the plant-based section is the fruit and veg section, right? That's your plant-based section of your supermarket. You don't have to go to I mean, a lot of this processed stuff is not so good. I do eat a bit of it myself. There's no sin in it. But the best way to eat, we say whole plant foods eaten whole, you know? Whole plant foods eaten whole. 5 words, all have 5 letters, easy to remember. That's the best way to have a diet. Whole plant foods, stuff that you can actually recognize. That's fantastic. That's the answer, isn't it? That's the answer. Yeah? Right, okay. Who's next? Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, sir. In light of what you said a little while ago, I know a mother. In her latter years, she became a diabetic. She also suffered a stroke. Now she had one daughter. The daughter is now dead. The same thing has happened. And that daughter, she has got one daughter. Now, I want to be able to speak with her and tell her, look, try and look after yourself and be careful. Now, you are saying, someone asked a question, and you said just now, nothing goes like that hereditary. So I don't know, these things puzzle me. And yet still, when we go to see the doctors, they would want to know if your mother had suffered so, if you have any relation suffer so, and this suffer so. So what are they doing? They're asking that so that they will come up with a thing to tell you that is what you're suffering from? I don't know. These things puzzle me.
Yes, yes. No, it's a good question. So anytime you see a doctor, part of the history that we take, you know, the beauty of medicine, there is some beauty and there's an art in medicine. It's not just science, there's art. And that art is when you're asking somebody the questions, those questions should lead you to the answer to the problem within 95% success. And part of it is what's your medical history and what's your family history. So if I ask somebody, what's your family history? Did your dad have high blood pressure or did your dad have diabetes? You are much more likely to have diabetes if your dad had it or if your mum had it. You are more likely. But what I'm saying is it's not because it's genetic. It's because it's a lifestyle trait. For example, my father was a diabetic. He had high blood pressure. He had prostate problems as well. So I have none of those things, but I do know that I have the same tastes that he had. So I have to really go through life restricting myself. That's why I look so miserable all the time. I'm going through life. I mean, I tell you, sometimes it's quite bad. There was a time, in fact, it comes and goes, where I can't walk down certain aisles in the supermarket. I just don't go down them. anything with cakes and biscuits, and I can't walk down because I don't think I can control myself. That is something that I have inherited, if you like, from my family. But I have to do my best to avoid it. But it's not because it's a genetic inheritance, it's because it's a lifestyle inheritance. Now, if you talk to your doctors, they won't say that. They'll say, well, because, yeah, it's probably inherited. I'm afraid that's not true because there is no evidence for it, and we know it's an emotional and habitual thing. And to answer the point further, it doesn't matter what age somebody gets type 2 diabetes, it can be reversed. Doesn't matter what age. I'll repeat it.
Would eat much garlic as well.
Yeah.
She ended up with a stroke and like it for a very long time. Now, I was of the opinion, yes, garlic is good for you, but you can't eat so much at one go as she was eating. Now, why she suffered the stroke?
Okay.
And you said you eat so much garlic.
Yeah, I'm not going to get a stroke.
What happened to her?
Don't put anything on me. Okay, look, that's a good point. You're worried for me? Yes. Okay. Yes. So, I mean, it's quite an interesting point you're making, because sometimes we get the idea that if I have a healthy diet, I can't get sick. If I have a healthy diet, if I exercise every day, I deal with all my stress, I can't possibly get sick. Well, this is not true. We're living in a world which is a bit sinful, let's say, right? We've got pollution everywhere. We've got radiation everywhere. Even the things that I said we don't even think about that are causing us stress are still bubbling up inside of us. There are lots of attacks on our bodies. In fact, I remember coming out of medical thinking, oh, I don't know how so many people are so well. There are so many attacks on our bodies. But the thing is, when I'm talking about health and lifestyle, you are reducing the risk. You can't eliminate it. So you don't get surprised when somebody on a brilliant diet has an illness. It can be many, many things going on. In the same way, you may have heard of people who've been smoking for years. In fact, I remember I was in Margate doing pediatrics, walking to the hospital, and I saw these young girls, must have been in their teenage years, smoking. And I thought, what am I going to do? Am I going to say something? I'm going to say something. I said, look, girls, look, you shouldn't be smoking. He said, are you one of those doctors from the hospital? I said, yes, I'm one of those doctors. Oh, we don't want to hear from you. You know, my uncle smoked 60 cigarettes every day of his life, and he lived to the ripe old age of 53. What do you say? What do you say to that? To them, that's old, you know. I mean, fair enough. But there are people you can smoke all their lives. No problem. No lung cancer. And then there are people who have never touched a cigarette and can succumb to cancer. So we're talking about probabilities. It's unlikely that if you're having a healthy plant-based diet, dealing with your exercise, dealing with stress, it's unlikely that you're going to have those significant diseases early in life anyway. But it's still possible. It's still possible. So there should be no judgment on people. You know, some of us, when we're in church, oh, but I thought you were. There's no judgment. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on around. Excellent.
Okay. I've recently developed a prominent vein above my temple. What could be the cause?
Yes, so prominent vein, you know, you can think about cartoons. When you see people with veins above their temple, it's usually because they're angry and there's stress coming out. It could be that. It could be that their blood pressure's going up. It could be something that we call temporal arteritis. Temporal arteritis, that's an inflammatory process, and it affects your vessels, and it especially affects these temporal vessels. If it's anything ends with itis, it's inflammation, right? So all the stuff I've been talking about, inflammation, you do the turmeric, the plant-based, avoiding sugar, all of those things will help to bring down that inflammation. Yes.
Next question. This is in relation to tonic water. Is tonic water good for consumption? Some say it is a good source of quinine. Also, are there health conditions that should avoid tonic water at all costs?
I mean, in the good old days of the British Empire, it's the Brits that kind of discovered this tonic water with quinine for being out in India. It does have a beneficial effect to get rid of mosquitoes. So if you're worried about mosquitoes wherever you are, sure, you can take a little bit of tonic water. If you're in Croydon, you don't need quinine every day, all right? Any drug, because quinine is a kind of a drug, will always have a side effect. Just take your water, eat your healthy diet, you'll be fine.
Okay, next question. Can one withdraw from insulin injection after reversing blood glucose to normal level and follow a healthy diet?
Yes. So when I treat people for, when I reverse diabetes, almost from day one, we stop the medication. Because I put you on a very tight diet, and I'm monitoring you myself anyway. So yeah, the idea is to come off. Because when you think about it, if a person is diabetic, we call it insulin resistance, right? You understand that. It means your cells don't respond to insulin. So what we then do, we give you a load of insulin to force your cells to respond to insulin. And what happens to your cells is they become even more insulin resistant. So you never get better. I'll tell you something, it's just between us, right? Just between us. A lot of medicine is a process to keep us all in work. I mean, it is. Look, I'm going to give you a drug. You're a diabetic. I'm going to give you a drug that will make your cells even more diabetic. Right. Who does that benefit? Right. And so your drug consumption levels will have to go up and up and up because you need more insulin. And then it gets to the point where, okay, now your arteries and veins don't work in your tips of your fingers, and it goes on to surgery, and it goes on to blindness. So yes, you can definitely reverse it if you know how.
Okay. Is there a natural remedy for bulging disc and sciatica causing acute and chronic back pains?
Yeah, sciatica, very painful. There's a few things you can do. The first thing to do is to lose weight, and especially to lose weight around the middle, because that is putting an awful lot of pressure on your spine. If you can do that, and then start to do some stretching exercises under guidance, for some people, you can relieve the pressure. By the way, I don't know if you have access to it. I think walking is good every day, absolutely. Trying to, I'll put it this way, doing this sort of a hanging maneuver. If you've got anything you can hold on to and just hang, that is good for your spine. It actually stretches out your spine. If you don't have something like that, there are different things you can do. For example, if you're sitting down, or if you're in the kitchen, if you can just push down on the counter, that takes pressure off of your spine as well. You can do it for 30 seconds, a minute. Do that every day. It continues to take pressure off of your spine, and that reduces the risk of worsening sciatica. Are we done? Or no? We've got another question? No. There you go.
Well, we would like to thank you, Dr. Chidi, for your expertise in answering those questions. We want to thank all of you who sent questions in, those of you who are in the congregation, those of you online. The time has passed extremely quickly, but we will be doing this again later on in the year. And so if you have questions, keep sending them in and we'll save them up for you. We want to thank everybody at the moment, and then we're going to close in prayer and end this profitable time. Okay, Father in heaven, we thank you for the skill that is here. We thank you for the opportunity to ask and answer questions. We pray that those people who have received answers will have found it beneficial and will be able to put these responses into action in their lives and make a real difference. We want to thank you for Dr. Chidi and his ministry, and we ask that you will be with everyone throughout the rest of this evening and throughout this Sabbath. In your precious Son's name we pray. Amen.